Welcome your faces back to episode number 43 of Profit or Loss, the series where I scour the internet for faulty electronic devices, attempt to fix them and sell them for a profit. A few videos ago, I actually revisited some of the fixes I wasn't able to do back when I was a noob. Don't get me wrong, I've still got a lot to learn, but this was a few years ago. The good thing about revisiting these is that the knowledge that I've accrued over the past 2 years or so gives me a better chance of fixing them. And I've already paid for them as a faulty item, so it's pure profit. An absolutely humongous shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. More on them in a minute. First, we're going to take a look at this board. So inside a Nintendo Switch console, you have a Nintendo Switch motherboard. The problem with this is I have salvaged it for parts. For example, we have the LCD connector that I've taken off. We have some components down here. I think this is the left joycon rail that I've taken off, the actual FPC connector. And if I turn it around on the back, you're probably not going to be able to see, but I have also taken some filters. So if you ask me what was wrong with this, I would tell you I have no idea. I didn't log the serial numbers of the motherboards because when I was working on Nintendo Switches, usually you'd have a motherboard inside the Nintendo Switch, and on the outer chassis of that Nintendo Switch, you had a serial number to log. But if I was going to use this board as a donor, what I should do, because I don't put them back together, is I should at least log the serial number on the board itself. Getting a bit up close and personal with this, Joey, what have you done, my friend? We have every possibility to turn around and say, I'm not going to attempt to revive this if I think it's too far gone, but I mean, it doesn't look like I've taken off the max IC, which is a good start. Flux all over the board, lovely. This is the one that has the bad port. Yeah, this port is very, very questionable. I mean, it looks like it's soldered all of the pins. So, good job, Joey, for back in the day. It doesn't look like the cleanest job at all, so that port will definitely need to be redone. You can see as well that the port itself isn't completely flat to the board. Is that causing some issues? Who knows? But you can see here, look. See that? All right, let's count how many components are missing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, any more, 15, 16, 17. And that looks to be it. 17 components missing. How hard can it be? You know, let's plug it into the ammeter and see what sort of a draw we actually get. Before we do that, a word from our sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace gives you the tools to create your own website and domain effortlessly. Their unique catalog of website templates makes everything so easy. Select whichever one you like the look of as a base and customize it to fit your needs. Using the asset library, upload and access all of your content from one place. If you don't have any of your own, use Squarespace's either free or paid library to make your website stand out. Then take customization to the next level using Fluid Engine. A tool from Squarespace allows you to intuitively drag and drop pretty much anything anywhere. I use this tool myself for pretty much everything on my website. Head over to squarespace.com for your free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/JoeyDoesTech to get 10% off your first domain or website. Starting with our ammeter, do you know what? I am just going to plug it in. See what I've done that ammeter? Just to see if this has any chance of surviving. Okay, so we get a light. What do we get? 5 volts. All right, okay. So no amp draw, which is pretty understandable, but 5 volts could indicate a bad M92 chip, as well as obviously 30 other things that are wrong with the board. But that's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm thinking best place to start is tidy up this section of the board. I can clearly see that BQ has been used before, and it's not the cleanest of soldering jobs. Again, it looks connected, but doesn't look amazing, does it? And the good thing about not having this Joy-Con rail connector here is that I think I'm going to have to replace this as well. I might as well. I can just heat from the top. As long as the battery connector is okay. Yeah, I'll just heat from the top and sort BQ out. It's a lot easier. Temperature-wise, I'm just going 450 at the moment because, again, I've done this before, this IC. So I'm assuming that I would have used leaded solder. I've never really used unleaded. But it could do with a nice clean, that is for sure. How's the actual chip looking? Is that okay? Yeah, chip's looking fine. Let's give it a nice clean whilst it's hot. Quite a lot of the pads here on this chip share the same traces. As an example, these two down here in the bottom left. So we need to, first of all, I think, just prep some pads. So we're going to put some flux around the BQ and here, and on these components down here. Might as well do this whilst I am here. Turn on our extractor fan. Okay. Now we begin the transfer of components, which should be okay. This is where steady hands really applies. Okay, looking good. All right, all those components are roughly in place. I'm going to apply some flux, and don't worry, give it a good clean and stuff. But I think that's all right so far. We should put BQ on now. Okay, looking good. So far, so good anyway. Okay, BQ, how are we looking? Needed to have a bit of a squeezage there, because the chip wasn't sat down correctly, so now we'll just go over it with the iron as well. Just be careful of these little resistors. Same here. Fine, fine. Those look connected. Yeah, okay. Doesn't need to be the smoothest soldering job, it just needs to work. I like to try and be as tidy as I can. So now we'll give it a nice clean up and just have a bit of an overview, go over and see, make sure that we've put what we need to put back in the correct places. I'll be testing for shorts as I go as well. Now let's put a drop of IPA and just go over it with a toothbrush. Pads down here are joined anyway, so that's fine. Pads up here are joined anyway, that's fine. A little bit of a big blob here, which I can sort out. Chip itself looks soldered. You see that? Looks good. Does it look good from all angles? Yeah. And all those caps are soldered on the board properly by the looks of it as well. Is that cap bridging? Maybe. Let's just separate that out a little bit, shall we? There we go, just to be sure. Small bit of flux there. That's better. There we go. Cotton swab, nice clean. Okay, looking 10 times better than what it did. I'm not going to replace this or this component because it's not needed for the switch to turn on. And that is my main priority currently. Need to replace this little guy. Get some leaded on there. Make it easy. There we go. Make sure that's all connected, which it looks like it is. Good. Right, M92T36, talk to me. So I'm just going to replace this straight up. I don't trust it. I've got trust issues with it, therefore it's coming off the board. However, can I see any bad soldering joints that might have caused this to not work in the first place? They look good. All of that soldering looks okay. I'd be happy with that. Maybe here? Second one on the left. They all look soldered to the chip though. I'm alright with that. Plan of action here. Take this off, put this cap on, this cap on. Then I'm actually going to test the board for shorts. I should probably add as a side note, I have tested this cap, which is supposedly, quote unquote, the dreaded CPU cap. And that is fine. That's the only reason I'm working on this board. Because when that cap develops a short, it is usually not good news. Okay, so you know this by now. Flux. And we're just going to add some leaded. Hopefully let them flow into place now. Cool, cool. Quick clean up of the flux. And then we're going to test for some shorts and just make sure that we don't have any short components. And then that port is definitely coming off, so we'll do that next. Okay, fan extractor off so I can hear myself talk. Meter in continuity mode, the mode that beeps when we have a complete circuit. Now, do we have any shorts around M92? Just checking this cap again. No short, good. Okay, no shorts on these caps, good. Short there? No, no short there. Short here? No short here either. Nice, we like to see that. Good. And just checking the P30. Now this cap is actually linked to the other side of the board, next to M92T36, but yeah, that's fine. So again, we just need to use filters as well. Not mandatory, this is only for the video output to the dock. I have these bits on the back as well, right? Theoretically, being 100% honest with you, I should be able to just run my iron over these pads because there's only 6 small balls and drop a chip on. Drop a flux. That's already got flux on by the looks of it. Iron. Even out those balls like that. Cool. Actually turn the board around a little bit because it's going to be easier to put it on from this side. Okay, here we go. Now, hopefully that's going to bounce back into place. Yeah. Okay. I think we're good. Think being the key word there. And then we should just have an inductor. There we go. Just float into place. That's fine for testing purposes. However, I do want this one to be sorted out a little bit. Nice. Again, quick clean. Okay, we good? We look good. Let's just freshen these pads up a little bit, shall we? Better. Let's transfer an M92 T36. Let's rotate the board, make our life easier. Clear this solder blob here. And this one. Those caps are now... There we go. Those resistors might be joined as well. So we'll just put a drop of flux. Tiny, tiny bit. Just hopefully those resistors go back on their pads. There we go. See that? Nice. I'm just going to make sure before I confirm that it's lined up. And those pads are joined to the chip. What about this side? Yep. Even though we still see the copper on the IC... Believe it or not, that chip is joined to the pads. What I would usually do is run my iron tip over that, but I've been struggling to find a small iron tip which emits enough heat towards the end of it to do that. So I'm not going to bother. As long as I can see that the chip is definitely connected to the pads, I'm fine, to be honest. It's a nicety to be able to clean it up and make it look prettier. But again, I don't know if this board is going to work. So niceties don't mean much with this board at the moment. Let's put on some isopropyl alcohol. Nice. And just a quick clean with a brush, just so I can double inspect and make sure I've done my job. Yeah, it looks fine. This is a side that probably looked least connected, but it definitely is connected. Yeah, we're looking good. I'll take this port off very quick. Being honest with you, that port was so hard to get off, like ridiculously hard to get off. I had to put my temperature up to 470 and 100% airflow, which on the Aten ST862D is a rarity. You never really need to go that high. But yeah, for some reason it just took ages to come off. How is it? Are we missing any pads? It's hard to say, honestly. Are we? It's still pretty hard to say. Just gonna heat it up again. No, we're not missing any pads. It's just maybe the solder mask has come off some of them. Yeah, they're fine. I took the fuse as well. I don't know if I counted that when I was counting the components, but the fuse has gone from this. Which would also explain 5 volts, actually. Thinking about it now. So, a little bit of flux. Leaded solder. And a fuse. Good. Should have checked this before I took it off the other board, but is that fuse okay? Looking for a beep. Yeah, it is perfect. Last but not least, we just need to pop a port on and give it a test. I am just going to run my iron over those pads. There we go. Better. Just in case this stuff is unleaded. I don't think it is. I'm just going to add some leaded to mix in. Oh, I'm almost out of cotton buds. When I say almost out, I've got 2 left. Tin our new port. Been doing that for months now. There we go. Now I just burnt this bit of plastic here, so I'm going to take it off because if you don't, the port actually struggles to sit on the PCB. There we go. Just remove you. There's our port pinned. Plenty of structural integrity elsewhere. Now this will be a little bit wibbly and wobbly. I don't tend to use too much flux here where I don't need to. There we go. Alright, where are my tweezers? Where have they disappeared to? I just had them. Someone's stolen them. Who's stolen my tweezers then? Got them. Somebody put them back. Wait for that solder to wet. There we go. That bottom one's just gone. That one's just gone. Come on. I need this bottom row of pins here to be glistening. Because otherwise when you drop the port on, they're not going to solder correctly. Okay, solder is wet, so we might be alright. Put the port on. Clearly the port's not straight, so we're keeping that heat there. And you'll see in a second, I'm going to jig it about a little bit. Now. And it's still upright, diagonal. So if I push, there we go. That's better. It's sat down properly now. I'm still going to keep the heat there. Moving the heat around. Let that solder travel where it needs to travel. I don't think those pads, where the pins go, are wet still. I'm going to push down on the port now and come off the heat. Let's go over those pins. To be honest, I'm not convinced. I am not convinced. Because if these ones aren't soldered properly, then the ones underneath aren't going to be soldered properly. Maybe they are. No, see, look, they're not. They're hanging. You see how they're hanging? Look at that. Joey with lesser experience wouldn't have a Scooby-Doo. Just going to reflow the port. Right, how are we looking now? See, I still don't think that's flat to the board. Can you see? There's something going on in this corner over here, which is preventing the port to sit down properly. And if that is the case, that row of pins underneath, they're going to be screwed. I can fix these pins, no problem at all. I can use a soldering iron and make those stronger, but the ones underneath, you can't do that. The only choice I've got, to be honest, is take this port off and then and clear out the holes completely. Well, I thought I'd give it one last reflow just to double check, and I really pushed down that time. Okay, maybe that's a bit better. Potentially. Let's just double check. Some of those pins are wobbly. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Just in case the board doesn't work, I am just going to solder these quick, and it will charge one way anyway. Don't need to worry about it too much now, I guess, do I? As long as I know for sure that these pins are 100% connected. Good flux will make this job easy. There we go. All right, check the pins quick. Yeah, they all look solid. Nice. That is good. Good connections. Are these ones good connections? No, look. These two aren't. The rest of them, yep. You tilt the board right up like this, you get a pretty good view. Yeah, all the rest are fine. It's just these two here. Absolute traitors. Out of cotton buds as well. All right, I've put heart and soul into this one. They look a bit better on the end, yeah? Yeah, can't move them. Nice. Again, filters on the back, not going to worry about them for the time being. Let's give this a test. Okay, so first thing I'm looking for here is 15 volts on the ammeter. If I get 15 volts, then I'm looking for some sort of amp draw and then back down to 0. So maybe even 50 milliamp hours, then drop down to 0. I need that to happen. If it doesn't drop down, we have a short somewhere on the board. It's usually the case. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. 5 volts. Still has 5 volts. Very interesting. This side, ooh, okay, it works both ways. It charges both ways. That's good. But we still only have 5 volts. Now I'm pretty sure, subject to being wrong, that can still pretty much be anything. Could be our BQ, could be M92T36, could be the port. So now I just need to do a little bit more probing. Interestingly enough, our fuse has blown. So continuity mode, yeah, seems good. And then on our fuse, nothing. So our fuse is gone. Now I did measure it before and we had a continuous path through the fuse. Should have checked this before I took it off the other board, but is that fuse okay? Looking for a beep. Yeah, it is perfect. I don't mind replacing it once more to see if that is definitely the issue, but I've double checked. There's no shorts around M92T36 and there's also no shorts around the BQ IC either. Let me just replace the fuse quick. This is the donor fuse that I'm going to be using, which as you can hear, has a continuous path. Okay, testing to ensure. All good. Hear that? Fuse? Good. Goes up to here. Perfect. Let's go ahead and test it again. Could be very dumb to try it again, but good learning curve nonetheless. 3, 2, 1. 15 volts. 0.04, 0.00. No shot has this worked. Try the other side just to make sure. 15 volts, 0.03, 0.06, 0.05, 0.05, sorry, 0.06. Anyway, getting hot. That's a little bit strange on this side, if I'm honest. 0.3, 0.0. That is what should happen. You see where it jumps up to like 30 milliamp hours and then jumps down? That's good. I'm going to hook up a battery and see what happens when we go to charge. Battery plugged in. What happens? Nothing. So it's not charging this battery at all. That screams BQ to me. And just to confirm the actual amount of voltage we have inside the battery. So yeah, we have 3.8 volts, more than enough. I'm pretty sure these batteries, when they're full, go up to around about 4.1, 4.2. For the sake of science, again, I will use another battery just to make sure. Battery plugged in. What happens now? 0.6, 0.09. Okay, is the battery charging? I mean, the battery is charging. Interesting. What I'll do then is I'll leave it in for the time being. That 90 to 100 milliamp hours is a good sign that it's charging a flat battery, which this battery is flat. So I'll just leave it and see what happens. Oh, okay. Right. So I've come back and it's at 470 milliamp hours, which is good. What did I do when I was gone? I went and had a mince pie. So it's definitely charging the battery. I'm at 3.6 volts now. After a while, it should turn the device on. My only bit of confusion that I have is that, okay, theoretically, say this battery here is fully charged. What that means is that the switch should attempt to turn on, but it's just 0. The switch should be turning on right now, unless this battery is dead. But you saw me measure it, and it was almost full. Okay, I've now attached a power button as well. So I've got a power button plugged in here, so I'm going to see if anything changes when we press the power button. But I need to wait for this battery to ultimately charge a little bit more, because currently we're at 3.6 volts, and that's not going to be enough to turn the switch on yet. Oh, wait a minute, it's just dropped to 210, 410, 470. I've just plugged the backlight cable in to see if that shows us anything. Oh, we have a backlight. Wait, 480. There goes the restart. Yes, 780 milliamp hours. Yes, come on. It's on. This switch is on. And better yet, the backlight works. Now, what I'm going to do is, to show you that the switch is on, is grab this little doohickey device here. This is a docking station, believe it or not. Not an official Nintendo docking station, but it should show us an image on the TV, or in this case, OBS. Let's have a look. Hopefully we get an image. It'd be unreal if we do. Actually, before I do that, it would be very stupid because we don't have any filters in place for P13 USB. Okay, meaning that we wouldn't get a display. In which case, let's get those added. Let's get some flux on here. That's a lot of flux, Joey. But it is what it is. I have only just seen that there's a resistor missing here as well. Cool. Fresh flux. There we go. Okay, all right, okay. All of those little bits are soldered now. Let's give it that second test. Okay, here we go, moment of truth. Plugged in, power button plugged in, just in case. We have the backlight in as well, just to be able to monitor it. Here we go, what happens? Okay. 0. Okay, fine. Took a little while there. We had the backlight. Is this going to turn off? It is. Is it going to turn on and shoot up to 700 milliamps, whatever? Perfect, it is. Still have the backlight? No, backlight's gone off. This is because we have the docking station plugged in. Now I'm going to switch over to the game scene. The game scene should show us a Nintendo Switch. If not, then I might have to inspect a little bit more. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the Switch isn't docking. We still have the backlight on the Switch, which is really good. Sometimes you just need to turn this around in order for it to work. Let's try again. Backlight's still on, from what I can see. Over to the game scene, still nothing. Okay, so the Switch isn't docking, it's taking the charge. It looks like it's actually turning on. What I need to do now, because I know the motherboard works and turns on, I need to get an LCD FPC connector to put onto the board, just so I can get a bit of a better idea as to what's going on. Then we can maybe look to solve the actual docking issue. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, and we're going to swap over this FPC connector. So this is the board that I'm working on. As you can see, I've clearly taken this FPC connector and used it on another board. My candidate for today is going to be this board. Now, do the pins all look intact? Yes, they do, no problem at all. Looks all good. So what I'm going to do is heat from the underside of the board, which is here, and then transfer the FPC connector over to the other one. Now supposedly this is also a donor board, but maybe I'll come back to revisit this one in the future. Who knows? Now what I'm doing is I'm not applying any flux to this because I don't want to get any flux inside the connector itself. So heating from the underside of the board will in theory melt the solder on this side, and we should just be able to lift it up. There we go. Now this board already has flux on, and that solder that you see is most probably going to be unleaded from when I remove the other LCD connector. So what I'd like to do is I'm just going to heat that flux up that we have from last time, give it a little bit of warmth, and then just take this solder off. You okay? Yeah. What have you been up to? Is it? Really? Yeah? Okay. Let's clean up here. Now we just put some flux. There we go, it's better. All nice and prepped. That is a bit fluxy. In which case, hot air gun, moving that heat around to melt the flux and not the actual connector. And then isopropyl alcohol. And a good clean. That's better. Yeah, much better. Okay, now let's put this connector on. Tiny bit of flux here. And moving it around, not too much, just enough to cover the areas that we need, just like that. Over to here, place the connector on, and we need to line it up, which is about there. The flux should really help in this situation. There we go. But we haven't got too much on. This shouldn't take anywhere near as much heat as taking it off, purely because of the fact we now have leaded solder here. You can see the flux is melting already. So I'm just moving the hot air around underneath the board, and you should see it snap into place any second. We might need to give it a bit of a push just to assist it, but usually not. That's probably it. Maybe a little push back on that side. That's it. Still a bit wonky, a little bit wonky on this side. There it is. That should be okay. Wait for it to cool down a second, then we're going to give it a clean. Double check everything is aligned and soldered. Yep, backside is all fine. You can see that all of those pins are connected nicely. And the front, are they all good and connected? Yeah, they all look soldered to me. Now for a huge test. Let's put it back in a chassis and see if we get a display. Okay, here we go. Battery's plugged in. Everything's pretty much plugged in. I have no idea if this display works or not. I mean, it is very, very beaten up, so I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't, but we're going to test anyway. Here we go. 0.07, 0.09, 0.48. Usually we would have a charging symbol here. We don't have that. 0.0. Okay, so 850 milliamp hours. So the switch is on, I'm assuming. We have the backlight. You can see just about down there we have the backlight, but we don't have anything on the screen itself. Before I check anything else, what I'm going to do is put it into another chassis just to make sure. All right, so I have another chassis again. I don't know if the screen's going to work, but we just test it anyway. So what happens? The battery also might be dead on this. 7 milliamp hours, 230 milliamp hours. Do we get a backlight? We do get a backlight. You can see there. Do we get a charging symbol on the screen? No, we don't. Okay. I think it would more indicate that there's an issue with the board itself. Could be the connections on the port. Maybe they aren't all solid. Maybe a few of them are loose. Maybe they're not connected. The connector's not even flat to the board, Joey. Oh, wow. Okay, fine. You can see here, look. Can you see? There's a gap here. It's not even connected to the board, which means that the pins aren't making a connection to the board at all, which might explain our display issue. Let's go for that reflow. I don't really like doing it this way because I don't want flux getting in the connector, but we just have to give it a good clean afterwards. I'm also going for a bigger nozzle. It was this side over here that wasn't down correctly. And come off the heat. That looks a little bit better. Okay, give everything a nice clean. How does that look? Is the connector from this angle flat to the board? Yeah, looks it. Okay. From this angle, the important one that we should have noticed last time. Yeah, look at that. It's so much better. Okay, fine. Definitely flat to the board. And look at those solder joints now. So much better. I just didn't look at it properly in the first place. Attempt 36,000 back in this scuffed chassis. In 3, 2, 1. Come on. Show me something on the screen. 0.07. 0.0. Yes, let's go. Charging symbol. Okay, we have display. Turn off, turn on. Yes. Okay. Do we see just a normal Nintendo Switch? Yes. There it is. Oh my gosh. Okay, fine. This one hits different because of the fact that this is something that I wasn't able to fix ages ago, and now, you know, it works at least. We obviously have some other issues, for example, the docking issue, plus the fact it doesn't have the FPC connector for the left joycon rail, but that's a small step in the right direction, so I'm really, really happy that we've actually got a display. I'll put the FPC connector on in a bit, but I do want to double check and see why I'm not getting a display on the docking station. It could just be a bad P13 USB. I don't think, I mean, it could be the port, because we struggled to get it on in the first place, but because we get charging on both sides of the port, I'm actually pretty doubtful that the port is going to be the issue. I think it's something in the P13 USB circuit. Remember, I replaced all of those filters as well, so we'll check those for a continuous path. I am just going to try it anyway. We've changed out the LCD connector. I'm just going to try the docking station as it is, the little doohickey that I've got. Let's put it in this way first. The backlight's gone off. Anything on the screen? No, nothing on the screen. Oh, wait, we get something on the screen. So the dock, so it works. What? Oh my God. Okay, sweet. It works in a docking station now. I don't know what the difference an LCD connector would make to stop it from docking. I mean, I'm not going to argue because I think that was the only thing that we changed before I tested with the docking station. I tested with docking station, it wasn't working. I put the LCD FPC connector on, and now it's docking. So the only thing I have left to do with this is put the joycon rail FPC connector on, and then I can give it a full test. So I hear you asking, Joey, how are you going to do that? Well, my friends, that's the exact same method that we just did with the LCD FPC connector. We take the FPC connector from a donor board, just like that. Oh, I need to do the speaker here as well, don't I? Okay, so I'm just going to then prep. I can't remember, to be honest with you, if I prep these pads or not. So I'll prep them again. I'm going to clean off that flux, and I'm going to replace it with a smaller amount. So we'll put a tiny bit there. Tiny bit there, just rub that in. Okay, now put them in place. That one will go there. This will hopefully again flow into place once we give it some heat. And this one just about there, I reckon. Moving that heat around, not keeping it in one place. This area of the board specifically is quite fragile, I'd say. Quite thin layers. There goes the speaker. And then, look at that, lovely jubbly. And then the other one. Come on. Here we go. That's it. A little bit more heat. There it is. I think I'm out of line with this. There's a pin that's just free floating. It needs to move over to the left a bit more. Does that look better? Yeah, perfect. Make sure all those pins are solid. This one here's a bit wiggly. I can sort that one out. There we go. Solid, 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 solid. in the words of Northridge Fix. Okay, all that's needed now is a little bit of thermal paste. I'm going to put it back in this chassis here just for testing purposes. I'm not going to sell it like this because it is not in a condition for me to sell, but I'll then do all the boring parts off stream, like find a new housing for it. I just need to make sure it works to be able to calculate it in Sally's spectacular spreadsheet. Okay, so everything's been put back together. We're drawing a healthy 600 milliamp hours, 740. It's nice. And then if I press the on button, we have this. I haven't tested if touch works. I've put pretty much everything back together, so all functionalities should be working, Wi-Fi, joycons, etc, etc. Here we go. Does touchscreen work? Yes, it does. Okay, so I put in a working game card reader as well, which is good. It doesn't have parental controls, which is also really, really good. You'll have to take my word for it. Wi-Fi does work as well. Do the joycons work? Let's go with this one first. Yes, it does. Does it pair? Yep, perfect. Oh, that Joy-Con's messed up. Sorry, not the Joy-Con itself, but the actual Joy-Con rail is very, very loose and wobbly. Oh, don't mind me. Does it connect down the bottom? There we go. Okay, maybe I think the rail itself, yeah, the rail itself is a little bit dodgy, but the connector on the board is fine. There we go. See, we get a healthy 1 amp, which would indicate they're both taking a charge. We go into controllers. Yeah, there we go. A charging symbol for all three things. Just to confirm as well, docking station. There we go. Look at that. Wow. Look at that. I'm so happy. Oh, game could not be read. Please remove and reinsert. Same thing. Okay. Any issues on the pins inside the reader? Doesn't look like it, hey? Well, those pins look really, really good. I'll try a different card reader. Different card reader has been put in. So is that going to be the difference here? There we go. An update is required to play the game. Sweet. All right, so that means that it is working. I'll try the other one just to make sure we get the same message. Yeah, straight away. Look at that. Nice. So albeit I just need to swap this over to, you know, a better chassis and give it a bit of TLC. That is a fully working Nintendo Switch. And because I paid for it a long time ago, that equals full profit. Let's head on over to Sally's spectacular spreadsheet to work it out. So the only cost that we actually accrued in today's video is £6, £1 for the USB-C charging port and £5 for the M92 T36 chip. Everything else was pulled off of donor boards. Sell price, easily I'll be able to get £100 for this in a nice shiny unit, which gives us a gross profit of £87.10. If we enter £87.10 down here, I said it in a couple of episodes ago, but slowly working our way back up the ladder, but we are minus £72.21. Sometimes the fixes just feel so good, and that was one of them. I'll leave a link to the start of this playlist in the top left hand side of your screen right now, so feel free to go and start from episode 1 to see what our journey's been like. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video, and if you are new around here, feel free to hit that subscribe button and like the video if you enjoyed. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.